Today, we're going to talk about the visitor process in BNI Connect, and we all want more visitors to our chapters. Visitors are the lifeblood of any BNI chapter because, visitors, some of them do become members, and we all are looking to grow our chapters, and growing our chapters also means more business for each other. We do have a quick question right away. Gretchen says, where is the handout? So the handout, if you're listening to this live with us today, like Gretchen is, it should be if you click on the GoToWebinar software, and there should be a handouts section within that. And in that handout, there should be a download to a file that's a Word document that says Visitors in BNI Connect. All right. So BNI Connect can help you with this visitors process. Now, this right here, the next thing that you're seeing on the screen, the flow of visitors, these are the three different ways or three different parts of the process that BNI Connect can help you with visitors. And it starts out with the visitor invitation. So we can actually use BNI Connect to invite somebody to come and visit a chapter meeting. And the great part of that, it gives them more information about BNI in a very brand aware way, and gives them the opportunity to register, which is the second part. BNI Connect can allow you to pre-register your visitors. Now the visitors can pre-register themselves, or you can register a visitor. And the great part of that is it dramatically increases the number of visitors that show up to the chapter meeting versus just saying that they're going to come to the chapter meeting. And then finally, once we start entering visitors into BNI Connect as part of this process, we can now follow up with visitors. Essentially what we're doing is we are building a visitor database for our chapters. So we can always go back to that list of visitors and maybe re-invite them to a chapter meeting, or maybe you want to invite them to a visitors day, or maybe you want to invite them just to a social event with your chapter. All of that's possible, but only after you start recording all of the visitor information into BNI Connect. Now this right here, this graphic, the flow of visitors, that one is part of that 53-page manual. If you happen to be listening to a recording and you'd like a copy of that manual, please just send an email to support@bniconnect.com, support@bniconnect.com, and we'd be happy to give you a copy of that email, a copy of the manual via email. All right, but let's go ahead and start this process. Let's take a look. What's the first step in this? And that's inviting visitors. So to do that, let me go over into BNI Connect. And for a lot of the tools in BNI Connect, we're going to have to go beyond this home page. The home page is where most of our day-to-day activity is, so where we're going to be entering our referral slips and our thank you for closed business slips and things like that. But a lot of the other functionality is behind these menus at the top here, where we have network, operations, reports, tools, and admin. Now, reports are read-only. Network is the social media stuff. Operations is where we're going to go if we want to kind of create or do something. Operations is really the day-to-day management of your chapter. So if we want to send out an invitation, we're going to go to Operations Chapter. And once we get here, we'll see some menu items on the left-hand side. But the one that we're looking for is the one that says Create Email. So it's towards the bottom there. Create email. And here we have a couple of options. The one that we're looking for is email visitor invitation. Should be the second one down on the list. So email visitor invitation. Okay, so what this is going to do, the invitation, it's a way for you to get a message to somebody that might be interested in BNI without necessarily having to think about what you were going to say. One of the things that I'm a member, I'm a veteran member. I've been a member for coming up on 14 years. Since 2002, I've been a member of the same chapter. But it's hard to explain what BNI is to somebody that's never really seen BNI before. So the visitor invitation kind of helps with that by sending out a very branded message that was put together by the professional marketing department in order to say the right things when you're inviting somebody. Now, with that said, this should be, really the second time they hear from you. We're not a cold call organization. We're a word of mouth organization. So this should really be a follow-up invitation that you're giving somebody. What we do not want to do is just start putting in random contacts and emailing out invitations to a bunch of random people. What we want to be doing is, asking somebody if they would like to attend a BNI meeting in person, and then following up with this invitation for them to be able to register. So in other words, let's say that you're out at a networking event. In our region here, our Chamber of Commerce does a ton of networking events on a monthly basis. They do a First Friday coffee and a business after hours and a network at noon. That's a great place to really work on your networking skills, both in just networking with other people outside of BNI, and also there's inevitably a couple of people there that might be interested in going further with networking and coming to a BNI meeting. So what I'll usually do is, hey, I'd like to invite you to our BNI meeting. Do you mind if I send you an invitation? And that's where this comes in. So all you need to do at that point is put the person's name in. So John Smith from Smith Co. and their email address. Now what it's going to do is to take this information and drop it into an email and immediately send it out to the email address. We're not really tracking any of this. It's just a means to get you an invitation that you can send out. So if you'd like to test this, my recommendation is do what I'm doing here and just send an email invitation to yourself so that you can see what it looks like. After you're comfortable with it, after you've seen how it works and operates, then you can send it to the person that you're inviting. This personal message here is going to appear at the top of the visitor invitation. So I'll show you that in just a second. This is your chance to, let them know that it was actually you that sent this and not some, random newsletter that they got subscribed to, and to explain really, what it is you're doing. So something like, it was great meeting you at the chamber event. Right, so I personalized it, made them know that it was me that was asking them. I look forward to seeing you at my chapter meeting. Please RSVP using the link below. Right, so now I'm going to go ahead and click send, and it's going to take this and address it to John Smith and send it out to that email address. And I just got this message, so let's take a look at it. And here we go. This is what it looks like. You are invited, my BNI Burr chapter. I did an invitation from my Antarctica chapter. How will you grow your business? It then briefly describes what BNI is all about. It then has a link to find out more about BNI as well as to RSVP. Now that find out more about BNI link will take them to discoverbni.com, which is a great website that has some testimonials. It has some videos showing what a chapter is all about and different professions that have some nice things to say about BNI and their contact sphere. And then the second part of this email has RSVP. Once they're ready to go to the chapter meeting, they click RSVP, and this will allow them to register for an upcoming meeting. So let's say that I'm John Smith and I would like to register for next week's meeting. So I'd like to register for the 29th here. And it's just a matter of filling out a form. Hopefully most people out there have filled out forms before. John Smith from Smith Co., phone number, and email address. And once again, I'm going to use my own email address so you guys can see this process. I can then choose an industry and a classification and who invited me. Type in a CAPTCHA code to make sure I'm not a robot. And click submit. And now John Smith is registered to visit that upcoming meeting. And so a lot of great things happen. And this is really now moving into the second part of this process, and where we talk about registering visitors. Now this right here, this is the most important piece of the whole thing. So what we found over the years is that a lot of people that are invited to BNI meetings don't show up. And I don't think it's just something that happens in my region. I'm pretty sure that's something that happens on a global scale. One of the reasons that they don't show up is because a lot of times we're doing a very casual invitation. So again, going back to that networking meeting, we may say to the person, hey, why don't you come to my BNI meeting? They're like, sure, that would be great. You know, when is it? Oh, it's Thursday at 7 o'clock. Great, I'll be there. Awesome, I'll see you Thursday morning. Yeah, Thursday morning? I thought it was 7 o'clock at night. Oh no, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. Oh, 7 a.m., that's kind of early, but you know what? I'll see you on Thursday. That sounds great. Then all of a sudden, Thursday rolls around and the alarm clock starts going off at, oh God, 30 in the morning. And the person's like, yeah, I don't know what I signed up for here. No way I'm going. It's this networking meeting so early in the morning. And they end up hitting the snooze button and not showing up. And a lot of times it's because where you met them or where you asked them to go to a BNI meeting was not a BNI meeting. So they're thinking, oh, it's just another networking event like this chamber event that has like 200 people here. Nobody's really going to notice if I don't show up. And I just would rather sleep in on Thursday morning. So what this registration piece does is it really changes the mentality of a visitor coming to the meeting. So instead of it being this casual, hey, yeah, show up if you want to, once the visitor RSVPs, they immediately get an email. So, for example, once I registered here, I got this email that says, hi, John, you are confirmed to visit the BNI Burr chapter on the 29th at 5:30 p.m. Now the visitor, John in this case, knows that he is expected to be there. So what we're finding is, yeah, you know what, they are going to miss me, so they now show up to that meeting. Or they end up calling up to say, you know what, something came up. Do you mind if I reschedule? On top of this email, so the visitor will get the email saying that they've successfully registered. They'll also get the reminder 2 days before the meeting to let them know that, you know, by the way, you signed up for this meeting, please attend the meeting. But on top of that, the leadership team also gets notification. So now the president, the vice president, the secretary treasurer, all of the visitor hosts and the chapter's director consultant, they all get a notification saying, hey guys, great news. There is a visitor that's going to be coming to the meeting this week. Please be sure to welcome them. Be sure to have a name badge for them. You may even want to give this visitor a call to say, hey, we're looking forward to seeing you. The more touches that we can have with this potential visitor before they even walk through the door, the better the chance that they will want to become a permanent part of the group even before they've even walked through the door. So if the visitor doesn't end up registering themselves for the meeting, one thing that you can do is you can also register a visitor for the upcoming meeting. Now you do that still through this operations menu. So again, data entry is always done under the operations menu. And where we're going to go to here is right here in the first section, manage visitors. And there is one here that most of the time only visitor hosts can see all 4 of these options, but just about everybody, I believe, should be able to see this one option that says register a prospective visitor before a meeting. And this essentially is the exact same thing that the visitor does when they click on the RSVP link, is to basically just fill out the form. So you're able to register your visitor for that upcoming meeting. You just have to put in all that same basic information, the name, the address, the contact information, what date of the visit, things like that. And once they click OK to that, it will register them just the same way they did from the website. There are a couple of mandatory fields, of course, the email address and phone number and things like that, because it does, again, it starts that whole process for registration. If you have lost your password at BNI Connect, or let's say you're out at a networking event or something, you can always register somebody through the regional website as well. So in Antarctica, our site happens to be antarcticreferrals.com. So if I go to our chapter page, so the BNI Burr chapter, visit this chapter button, and that is essentially the same form. So there's like multiple different ways that you can get that visitor registered for that upcoming meeting. All right, now once you have these visitors registered, this is awesome because now you can see kind of your pipeline of visitors. Now think about this, especially for a visitors day. Wouldn't it be great to know how many visitors are actually registered for an upcoming visitors day? So there's a great little report for this. So if I go to the reports function, one of the reports all the way down at the bottom is the visitor registration report. And if I run this report for next week, I can see that John Smith is registered to visit the next week's meeting. And again, if you're having a visitor's day or something like that, I mean, I can pull this registration report really for any time period I want to, so I can see if anybody's registered throughout the whole summer. Of course, there's only somebody registered for next week, but that is certainly available to do. All right, so that's the visitor registration process. So the first step was to invite visitors. The second step was to pre-register visitors. And again, the visitor can pre-register themselves through that RSVP link or through the regional website, and or you can register those visitors by logging into BNI Connect and registering them. Now, the last part of this is usually really it's more visitor host centric, or secretary treasurers in some regions do the next part of this process, but it's doing the marking of the visitors. So once a visitor has shown up to the meeting, what is that next step? So usually the next step after this is we want to make sure that we mark the visitors that actually did show up to the meeting. So if we go to operations chapter, now if the visitor pre-registered themselves, or if you have pre-registered your visitors, this part of the process is really, really easy. All we have to do is go to Manage Registered Visitors and mark attendance. We can do a search for visitors. Let's say I want to search for anybody that was registered for this past week and there was nobody. Let me go back a little bit further. And here we have some registered visitors here. So let's say that John Smith here, he was originally registered for the 4/13 day, but he actually showed up this week. So what I do is I go and I click the edit button here. Now, one of the great things is if a visitor does call and say, hey, I can't make it this week, can I come next week? All you need to do is change the visit date. So let's say this person actually showed up this morning. I could change the visit date here. I then need to just, all the information is here already, so all I need to do is do visitor attended, and then choose whether or not the person that invited them will get credit in the PALMS report. Now, we may not always want to give credit in the PALMS report, and the reason for that is that it affects conversion ratio, which is part of the traffic lights. So if the same visitor is marked as having come, you give credit to that person 2 or 3 or 4 times, that's really going to artificially lower your conversion ratio, because the conversion ratio is just the number of visitors divided by the number of new members. And then finally, you can choose whether or not to send the follow-up email. And the follow-up email will go to the visitor to say, thank you for attending the meeting. And you'll notice that this visitor is no longer in the registered visitors database. They've been now moved into our attended visitors database. And here is that thank you note that I received. And then if a visitor is not listed here as being registered to visit, the visitor host can always click on Add a Visitor and enter the information from scratch. Gretchen says, does completion of the POMs by the VP also achieve the same thing? So what happens is when the VP, I'll just show this to you real quick, when the VP goes to enter this week's meeting, so they're going to go and enter the POMs report, there is a verification step where they're presented with the visitors. So this says that Jeremy invited John Smith on the 22nd. Would you like to give Jeremy credit for bringing John Smith to the meeting, yes or no? That's when it becomes official, and it's 100% in the POMs report and in all of the statistics as well. So does that make sense, Gretchen? Does that answer your question? All right, so once we have visitors now we have a visitor database. So we can go back and, again, if I go to the reports, you'll see that we now have a chapter visitor report. So we can look through, and let's say that we're having an open house, or we're having a business after hours with our chapter, and we want to re-invite anybody that's come to the chapter so far this year. I can go back to the beginning of the year and click Go. I can then export this report and invite any of these members to one of our after hours, or let's say we're having another Visitors Day. We can invite any of those members to the Visitors Day. So Gretchen had a comment question. It doesn't have to be done in both places. Correct. A vice president could just put a 1 in the column. When they do that, though, it doesn't necessarily keep all of this information, all this visitor database information, which you can go back to, and tap into at any time. Does that make sense, Gretchen? All right. So that said, a lot of people ask, well, this is all great. I'm glad you guys sat in a lab and came up with all this information, but does it actually work? The answer to that is yes. And here's how I know it works. Going back actually to kind of when this first came out almost 2 years ago, so it was about 2014, I was the president of my chapter. And I'm the director of support for BNI Connect worldwide. So I'm like, hey, chapter, you guys do me a solid here, and I just want to see if this visitor registration piece works. So I asked them, listen, we're still going to do our 40 letters. We're going to do phone calls. We're going to do all the follow-ups. The only thing I want to ask you guys to do, in addition, is to please register your visitors in BNI Connect. So go to the website, log them in. They'll get a confirmation, and we'll know how many people are coming. So we get to our meeting, the meeting the week before our Visitors Day. And I stand up and I say, okay, well, how many visitors do we have coming? We go around the room. John has 2 visitors, and Jack has 3 visitors, and Mary has 5 visitors. And we get around the room, and my chapter has about 50 people in it. By the time we get done, I'm like counting in my head, we're going to have like 150 people here this week. I got to get more parking. I've got to make sure they cook enough food. And when I went back and I looked at the visitor registration report, I kind of got the wind taken out of my sails, because we only had 6 registered visitors for that meeting. So I put together this little email, and this isn't something that was done through BNI Connect. It's just something I did on my own through my own email program. Just said, hey guys, we have 6 days until our Visitors Day, and I know you guys said you had 150 people coming, but I can only count on 6 of them right now. So can you please click here to register your visitors? And that's just a hyperlink to the visitor registration page. And then I went to that visitor registration report and I copied and pasted it right into this email, and I sent that out. Well, within a few minutes, a very interesting thing happened. My email started going crazy, ding, 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 because I'm getting all of the visitor registration notices. And by the next day, I was able to send out an email. 5 days until our Visitors Day. Now we have 21 registered visitors. Great job. Keep it up. Keep sending some more visitor registrations in. 4 days, we had 26 registered visitors. 3 days, we had 34 registered visitors. 2 days, we had 39 registered visitors. 13 hours before our Visitors Day, we had 45 registered visitors. Now, most times, we get about anywhere between a 25 and 50% ratio of people that actually show up to a Visitors Day. Not the case with the registered visitors. In this case, we had 42 people that showed up. Out of the 45, the 3 that didn't show up called and apologized. They called and said, hey, do you mind if we reschedule for another week? And they ended up coming back the next week. We ended up with 6 applications, 3 additional ones. We ended up with 8 new members from that particular Visitors Day. I would call that a success, and this process works. So if that works, then you do it again, right? So I'm no longer on the leadership team. The next leadership team comes in and they're doing the big hullabaloo. Oh, we'll do a Facebook thing and we're going to send out invitations, with MailChimp, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We're going to split the chapter into multiple groups and have a contest. And, what ended up happening was we ended up with 8 visitors over the course of 3 weeks and no applications. So another 6 months goes by and the same leadership team is trying to do the same thing, the Facebook events and all this stuff. I'm like, guys, tell you what, do you mind if I just do one thing? All I want to do is ask them to register their visitors online through BNI Connect. And I did that same process and I said, okay, we have this many days to all Visitors Days, please register your visitors. And that time we ended up with 25 visitors in attendance with 4 applications. And I'll tell you, I haven't put it into slides yet, but we did another Visitors Day just last week here in my Wakefield chapter, and we had 22 of 24 registered visitors show up. Yeah, the process works. It works really, really well. So we are at the bottom of the hour. What I would like to do is to open this up to questions. I see Rob has already put a question in, which I'll get to in just one second. I just want to let you guys know that this is being recorded and it will be made available on our support site. So all you need to do, see this question mark in the upper right-hand corner? Click that question mark. That question mark will take you over to the support site. And on the support site, there is a section called Live and Recorded Webinars. Click that. That's where you'll be able to sign up for our next series of webinars and also see our recordings. And I hope to have this recording from today's presentation in there very soon. I already have the first couple of them up, but I do need to get yesterday's and today's webinar there. Now you can also always go to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. We have a ton of other stuff up here. We have our of course, our monthly series of webinars. All of them have been recorded for the past couple of years. We also have some short education moments for very specific topics that are usually only about 3 minutes or so. All right, questions. Please type your questions in. We just have one question right now from Rob. Rob says, does the chapter visitors report, do we only see our visitors or all visitors in the range? So there's a couple of different reports. If I go to reports chapter, so these are the chapter level reports. There's 2 different reports. There's the visitor registration report and the chapter visitor report. But in both cases here, both in the chapter visitor report, so this will show people that have showed up to the meeting. So these are people that have actually come to a BNI meeting. This will show you only your chapter. Okay, but for any date range you would like to. The second one is the visitor registration report. This is the list of all people that are registered for an upcoming meeting for your chapter. And then the report right under that, which I didn't touch on earlier, the visitor not attended report. This one actually shows people that were registered but never actually showed up to the meeting or weren't marked as having showed up. So, Rob, if you happen to be a director consultant or an ambassador, you may have access to the regional level reports under Reports Region. And under the regional reports, then you can also, you can find that on a region-wide scale for multiple chapters. All right? Does that make sense? Gretchen says, from the visitors not attended report, can you re-invite from there? So the visitors not attended report, so let me open this up a little bit. This will show me the people that did not attend. Now from here, I could re-invite them by going in and copying and pasting their email address into an invite, but there's no direct way for me to do that. That's a brilliant suggestion, though, that I'd be happy to pass along to the programmers. It would be great if we had a little button here or something that said re-invite and allows you to re-invite them. So maybe someday. Rob said, if we had a visitor attend but that person does not show, should we report that to someone? Yes, what I would say is let your secretary treasurer or your visitor host know that you invited somebody and they didn't show. They could actually remove that registration from the database. All right, let's see. Karen Jimenez. She's with us from Brazil today, so thank you so much. That means that you're here pretty late in the evening. I think it's probably about 9:30 or 10:30 at night, if I'm not mistaken, where you are in Brazil. Or actually, no, you might be the opposite direction, so you might be 1 o'clock or so in the afternoon. Oh, okay, in Sao Paulo. So excellent. Thank you guys so much for being here. So she'd like to know if you can find the visitors system in Portuguese. So Portuguese, the stuff that's on the screen here should be translated into Portuguese. I don't have the help document in Portuguese, unfortunately. You may have to check with your national director or executive director for that one. The only help documents we have right now are in English, so I do apologize for that. But I'd be happy to, my recommendation would be to, if you want to have your national director get in touch with me, I'm happy to share any documentation I have with them that they could translate into Portuguese. All right. So excellent. All right. So Karen says it's 4 p.m. there, so you're about an hour ahead. Excellent. That was the last question or comment. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns, compliments, criticisms, critiques? Katie says, thank you for being here to help us learn more and grow. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, you're the one that is putting in the extra effort to learn more about, how to grow your chapter. So thank you guys so much for being here. I recognize a number of people that have been on all of these calls, this entire series of calls over the past 2 weeks. And I love the fact that I keep seeing your names pop up again and again. Just so you know, a great referral for me is to let your other chapter members know. I mean, knowledge in a vacuum doesn't do any good. What we really need is your whole chapter doing some of this stuff. And they can't do it if they don't learn how to do it. So a good referral for me is really 2 things. Go to the support site and get them to register for the upcoming webinars. So go to live webinars, share this hyperlink with them. So we've already completed this series. I will be doing this entire series again in July. I will be posting that schedule very, very shortly. So even though other chapter members may have missed it this time around, they can either check out the recordings or sign up for the July ones. I'll also be doing a leadership-based series, which is coming up, starting tomorrow and through next week, that really concentrates on some leadership team level stuff. So a good referral for me is for somebody to register for one of these upcoming webinars or for them to go back and watch the recording. So, but thank you so much, and thank you, Rob. And Jennifer says, thank you so much for the education lesson. Love BNI, and me too. So I will be a member of my chapter, hopefully for another 14 years. Cameron says, I appreciate the reference to real experience on how the registration system pays off. Again, yeah, I wanted to prove that it worked both to myself and to my chapter. So we're continuing to experience positive results. All right. I think that was the last comment. So if there's no additional questions or comments, I'm just going to say thank you guys so very much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Happy connecting, everyone.